Where to begin? 2 days until Christmas, and here I am sitting in a bar wondering where I went wrong. My wife Sue and I had a hell of a fight, and all because I was reading adult stories on the computer. It all started a few years ago when I started reading erotic stories on the internet. After more than 7 years of marriage, sex didn't happen as often as I wanted. So after 15,000 arguments with this little woman, I simply said, well, to hell with him. If she doesn't want to do it that often, then I'll at least read about it. I've read in many articles that this crap is as bad as smoking, drinking, or even eating weed, that it is addictive and can ruin your life. Now, I am somewhat inclined to agree with this assumption. It seems like my mind has no more answers. Fantasy, reality, truth, lies, I can't figure it out. I often wonder if there are other guys just like me. I'm wondering if there are other marriages like mine. What happened to them? Did they succeed? I want to know. That's why I'm here at the bar waiting for old friends. I want to hear their stories. Brad and Mark are already divorced. Jim is still married to an Asian woman he met abroad. They have been married for about 4 years. My marriage seemed quite normal. We have 2 children at home. We both work, and our schedules are quite busy, and we don't spend enough time together. I think we put everything in our lives before ourselves. Or maybe sex is just outdated and not worth worrying about. For me, these stories are mind games. I don't even know what to believe anymore. I always thought I knew what I was like. But after reading so many stories, I don't know anymore. Sue gave me an ultimatum. Stop reading stories, or she wants a divorce. As soon as I started reading these damn stories, I had to ask myself, is this fantasy or reality? Nobody could put up with the crap I read about. Husbands, wanting to swap wives, say, fuck my wife, please. Parties turn into orgies. Men bring strangers home to fuck their wives. Interesting read, but it distorts my consciousness. All I wanted was to spice up my sex life a little. I didn't want to own the whole damn planet. I was wondering how I felt about my marriage, my wife, my sex drive. I had no intention of having an affair. I was just taking care of my wife. Reading so many stories, I wondered what it would be like to watch Sue with another man. Would I become aroused, as happens in many of the stories I read? Would I be able to share her with another man and maybe even join them? I've found that my favorite stories are those where the husband is in charge and gives his wife away to other men when she's high, or so drunk she doesn't know what's going on, or at such a stage that she doesn't care. God, I can imagine Sue lying on the bed with old friends or strangers fingering her breasts. I imagine her on the dance floor and let men touch her while she smiles at me. In my thoughts the next day, she never remembers what she did. The main thing is that I am in control of the situation. The downside to these stories was Sue's betrayal. When I read these stories about cheating wives, I always imagined Sue as the cheater. Eventually, I found out about it and took revenge on Sue and the guy she had sex with. In these fantasies, I've beaten or killed more guys than you can imagine. I didn't want to be made into a cuckold. Like I said, I'm actually confused. The guys showed up, we ordered beer, went and sat in a corner booth, away from the noise. So, Bob, what is all this crap about you wanting to hear about my divorce? Asked Brad. Sue doesn't cheat on you behind your back, does she? I'd find it hard to believe, but shit happens. That's why I'm divorced today, Mark mentioned. My wife said she found someone better. The problem is that I introduced them. No, Sue didn't cheat, except in my thoughts. I was reading all these stories about wives cheating and it got me thinking about Sue. It's all in my fucking head. Sue was so fed up with me reading these stories that she said let me read them but not under our roof. She's tired of my shitty fantasies. I better either put this out of my mind or find another wife. Damn, Bob. Very straightforward. Are you letting her tell you what you can and cannot read? If my old lady tried this with me, I would throw her out into the street. In my house, I am the boss. Maybe you guys should have married an Asian girl, Jim answered. So, Brad, do you want to tell us a little about your background and why you're divorced now? I have nothing to tell you except that I ruined everything. We got married young, and the sex was good. I have a traveling job in sales and I am away several days a week. I spent too many nights alone in a motel room and decided to spend more time in the recreation areas. Needless to say, after a few drinks and a few women showing up alone in the lobby, I started making introductions. The first couple of times I felt awkward because I had cheated on Amy. I always told myself that I would stop, but the truth is that I loved it. After a while, I just started hiding it, hoping Amy would never find out. Because I traveled to different cities, I rarely saw the same women again. It became a part of my life. When I was home, I still tried to be nice to Amy. I convinced myself that this would strengthen my marriage. I wasn't that mad at Amy when she didn't want sex, and he really forced himself to believe that everything was fine. I thought I was hiding everything very well until I got to the office and received divorce papers. This was 2 years after I started cheating on Amy. She hired a private detective, who she eventually had to pay. For 2 months he followed me. I didn't expect this. Apparently a woman called her and asked about me. This woman, Sheila, found my cell phone, which I left in the room. She called me at home to tell me she had found him. On my mobile phone, she looked through my contacts and simply called home. She told Amy that she was a maid at the motel where I was staying. Amy gave her our address, and the phone number was mailed to us. Unfortunately, Amy apparently became suspicious because she called the motel back and asked to speak to Sheila. The administrator told her that no one with that name worked there. Amy told me at the divorce hearing that I seemed nervous when she said Sheila called her and that she found my phone. Apparently, I reacted incorrectly when she mentioned Sheila, and then she called the motel back. I'm sorry for what I did to Amy. She deserved better. I miss my kids, only seeing them once a weekend. And now that Amy is dating someone again, I'm starting to get jealous. I don't know if we'll ever get back together. More than a year has passed since the divorce. Sex with strangers is no longer as pleasant as it used to be. Perhaps the fact that I couldn't get away with it diminished its appeal. Besides, now I miss what I don't have, which is Amy. We somehow decided on the children, but she does not allow me to touch her. I pay alimony and child support, all because I thought I was smart enough to hide the infidelity. Now I'm paying for it. Damn it, Brad. Looks like you still care about Amy, I replied. That's the problem. It's exciting. It just took a divorce to realize this. Don't screw it up with Sue. If you really love her, put aside your machismo and think about her and the children, Brad said. What about you, Mark? You were under the impression that Marie was cheating on you or that you knew about it. Would you like to take the burden off yourself and tell us? Look, I'll tell you what happened, but if any of you tell anyone, I promise to come back and kick your asses. I'm older than you guys and have been married longer. After about 7 years, our sex life stagnated. Before we met, Marie was a wild child, but we fell in love, so I thought, and got married. Marie couldn't have children, so we never had any to interrupt our sex life. Don't get me wrong, it just doesn't make any difference to me. If we had backbreakers, I still wouldn't be a better father. After a few years of marriage, we started talking about swinging, swapping, and the like. Just talking about it has improved our sex life. When we went to parties, we started to let ourselves go. I started touching other men's wives in their presence, just lightly at first to see how they react. When they saw this, they started touching Marie. This really made me tense. We were entering into a completely new way of life. Walking into a room and watching another man have your wife while you had him was a real thrill. I didn't feel like a weakling, but felt great. We started going to swingers parties. I have had sex with women of almost every race and ethnicity. Marie and I did not cheat on each other. We both knew what our partners were doing. This went on for several years. About once every couple of months, we attended parties. In between, we swapped with other married couples. From the very beginning, we made it a rule that both of us should like the couples with whom we exchanged. I didn't want anyone to hurt Marie. Another rule we set was to not go out and have sex alone. I have fulfilled many fantasies that I have had over the years. It seemed that life sexually could not be better. Jim, do you mind if I tell them about us? What? Did you switch with Jim? Mark asked. Come on, I was going to tell you later anyway, Jim said. Jim's wife, as you know, is Asian, and I asked him about his idea of swapping wives. He laughed and said that he and Kim have been having sex ever since they met. I asked Marie, and she said she always thought Jim would be good and was willing to give it a try. We wanted to do it right, so we invited the women over for dinner and did a little dancing. Then the fun began. I stood on the dance floor with both hands on Kim's butt. Damn, she's got a tight little ass. Sorry, Jim, but she's a beauty. I'm not offended, Jim answered, smiling. We got a room with a double bed, and I probably fucked Kim at least 3 times that evening. I knew Marie had completely worn Jim out. After that, we were with them 2 more times. Everything seemed fine until one day I broke one of my own rules. No singles or divorced partners. We wanted them to be married so that they would have as much to lose as we did if something went wrong. I had a new boss, and like most employees, I wanted to impress him. You have all seen Marie. She can impress anyone. He invited Marie and me to dinner. Damn, she looked sexy. She flirted as usual, which she is good at, but she knew our rules. Joe, my boss, was, how shall I put it, fascinated by Marie. He tried his best to hide his feelings, but I could see that he was fascinated by her. As we left the restaurant, I reminded her that single or divorced men were not allowed. She said she understood and would honor our agreement. She was just teasing him to help me in business. Things at work became increasingly stressful. Joe was talking about making me assistant manager. He often asked about Marie, and I always answered that she was fine. One day I asked Marie about the possibility of attending another swingers party. She said she would think about it. This was supposed to happen next Friday. That same Friday, Joe asked if I wanted to go to the office for a conference. He had other plans, and he needed someone to go instead of him. He said that it was necessary for someone from our office to participate, and he was going to send someone. I could choose whether I wanted to go. I was supposed to leave on Thursday and return on Saturday. All my expenses will be paid. Not seeing beyond my nose, I said that I would go. When I told Marie about it, she said it was nice, but she still wasn't in the mood for a swingers meeting. I left on Thursday, kissing my wife goodbye. I parked in the airport parking lot since I would only be away for 2 nights anyway. I got on the plane and flew to New York. It was fantastic. I stayed at the Holiday Inn and called Marie after checking in. We chatted for a bit, and I told her I'd call her on Friday. The conference was quite boring, but I managed to sit through to the end. It was nice to meet some of the executives and my senior bosses. They told me that Joe spoke well of me and that I was doing a great job. It made me feel really good. We all went to lunch and then sat through the rest of the meeting. I returned to the Holiday Inn and went to the lounge. The women there were something. I couldn't tell if they were prostitutes or just some women out hunting. Just looking at them made me feel hot. Several women approached me. One even tried to pester me. It would have been easy for me to take them to my room, but I remembered my agreement with Marie. I didn't want to go down this path of betrayal. I called Marie. There were several beeps before she answered. She seemed out of breath. "Why didn't you pick up the phone for so long?" I asked. "Was in the shower. I thought you'd call much later, so I decided to mute the sound," Marie answered. "Damn, I miss you. How I wish I could be there with you right now." "I'd have sex with you like there's no tomorrow," I said. "Baby, keep this promise in mind and you can do it tomorrow when you get home." I have to go. My entire floor is flooded with water from the shower. "See you tomorrow, good night." She hung up, and I stood there wondering what was stopping me from returning home this evening. I called the airport, and it turned out that I could fly out in an hour. I collected my luggage and headed to the airport. Arriving at our local airport, I thought about calling Marie, but decided to surprise her. Of course, as you may have guessed, it was a real surprise for me. When I pulled up to my apartment, Joe's car was parked in the driveway. I didn't want to think about the worst and kept coming up with excuses for why he was there until I unlocked the front door. The lights were turned off everywhere except our bedroom. There was only light from the lamp on our bedside table. The closer I got to the bedroom, the worse I felt. Approaching the door, I saw Marie having sex with Joe. Needless to say, I was furious. You have to understand that I saw her have sex with many men, but she did not cheat on me. This time, everything was completely different. I was cuckolded by my boss. He heard me come through the bedroom door and looked back. Before he could say anything, I hit him with a right hook in the face and knocked him out of the bed onto the floor. Then Marie saw me for the first time and screamed, "No, Jim, I love him. Please don't hurt him." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She loves him? This means one thing. They must have already been together. To be sure, I hit him again, telling Marie that she had until the morning to find another place to live. I wanted her out of my house and out of my life. I left, went to the nearest motel, and got completely drunk. I woke up only at noon the next day. Remembering the previous night, I went home. When I entered, I saw that Marie had taken a lot of her clothes and personal belongings. I cried. She was very dear to me, but she broke the rules. As soon as she cheated on me, I knew I could never trust her again. Later, she called and asked when she could come and pick up the remaining things. I said I would be gone on Sunday and then she could pick them up. On Monday, I came to work and one of the bosses from the main office was there. He said Joe called him on Saturday and explained the situation. I don't know what story they told him, but I was offered the position of assistant manager in this office. Joe is transferred to an office in another state, and Bill was to take his place as the new manager. I later learned that Joe is a relative of the company president. He and Marie now live in Michigan. She filed for divorce, and I had no reason to challenge it. As far as I know, they still live together. Bob, do you want to know my opinion? Don't open a can of worms. Once it's open, you can't push the worms back in. Damn, Mark, I never would have thought that you and Marie were like this. I knew she was a little wild, but I have to say you surprised me. Okay, Jim, now it's up to you. From the looks of it, you're living a life similar to Mark's old life. Aren't you afraid that everything might end up like Mark's? I asked. Wow, guys. I'm sorry things didn't go smoothly for you. Kim and I have an open marriage and an open relationship. You have to understand that I spent quite a few years in and around Asia. They think about sex completely differently. At first, I was surprised that everything was so open. Men sell their wives, brothers sell their sisters. If I'm going to tell you guys about my sex life, I need to know that it won't go any further, even before your wife or ex-wife. Most people won't understand my life with Kim. Jim, we all promise that it won't go further than this table. Is everything so different from what we expect? It was completely different for Mark, Bob said. Look, when I met Kim, she was something of a prostitute. For several months, I paid her for sex. Quite cheap, sometimes she didn't even charge me, but I still helped her family. Kim has 6 sisters and 3 brothers. They lived in a very poor part of the village, and the girls engaged in prostitution to bring in money. I had sex with all of Kim's sisters and even her mother. That's just how life is there. In the end, what I wanted most was to be with Kim when I went to their house. Hell, she could make me reach the finish line in minutes if she wanted to. I didn't really have anyone at home, so when it was time to go back to the U.S., I asked Kim to come with me. I had to pay her father a dowry. Damn, it's only $1,000. But right away, it was a lot of money for everyone. Kim always said she loved me. But what is love? She probably said that to every guy she had sex with. I know that she respects me and treats me well. That's enough for me. After we returned home, she always wanted to show me how grateful she was to me. Usually in the form of sex. There's nothing this girl can't do. She is small, but very dexterous. After a while, I began to miss communicating with other women. I'm used to some variety. Kim speaks excellent English, and we get along great. We don't have children, which makes our sexual relationship much easier. Maybe someday she'll stop taking the pills and we can have a child or two, but for now, we like an open sex life. She still has a few years left before she can have children. She said she wanted a couple, but not really yet. It's amazing how many American guys want Asian women. Whenever Kim and I go out, she always gets pestered. Most often, this happens unnoticed, but sometimes, if I am not around, she is immediately offered to have sex. I've kicked a lot of assholes who thought they could just take Kim. We may have different types of love, but she is still my wife, and expects me to take care and protect her, which I do. Anyone who touches her without her or my permission will end up in the hospital. I can guarantee you this. The first time I allowed another man to take her was at a party. This guy's wife was stunning. Tall, big breasts, long blonde hair, and sexy as hell. She is the complete opposite of Kim, looking very petite and young. This guy couldn't forget Kim's appearance. We started talking, and the four of us sat down at the same table. I asked his wife to dance. She told me that they have an open marriage and her husband is partial to Asian women. Later, I talked to Kim and asked if she would like to pursue this guy. She said that I am the husband and must make the decision. It was her way of saying yes. They invited us to their home, and without thinking twice, we swapped wives. Damn, this woman was good. I was used to Kim's petite body, but this woman was completely different. We spent the night having sex with each other's wives. In the morning, we cleaned ourselves up and went home. I asked Kim if she liked it, and she said yes. When I asked if she wanted to do it again, she said yes, but only if I wanted to. We don't host swingers parties or have open sex. We communicate more one-on-one with other couples. This way, I have more control. We usually don't go with another couple more than 3 times. We feel like this could ruin our relationship. If either of us starts liking someone else, we break off the relationship. We don't want to destroy what we have. I have already mentioned that our marriage is open. By this I mean we are talking about other people or couples. Kim doesn't have sex with anyone while I'm not around. There are too many crazy people who would like to hurt her. I have shared her with several guys, but she never deals with other men alone. I know you're wondering if I trust her after hearing Jim's story. I trust her completely. She and I have a special bond, and she knows that if she lies to me, it will be broken. She tells me if she's been approached while she's out shopping or walking alone, getting her hair done, things like that. I sincerely trust her. She knows that if she has a sexual need, we will take care of it. But I have to control the situation. While I was away, I had several women. I told Kim about this on my way home. I want her to know that I am honest with her. I know that most people cannot understand our lifestyle, but there are many others whose lifestyle is similar. Just think, I can fuck almost any woman whose husband has a crush on an Asian woman. Believe me, there are many of them. For example, Jim. Many men get tired of having the same woman for years. They want something different. And that's where Kim and I come in. This is one of the reasons why I keep myself in shape. I'm not stupid, and I know that Kim is the one who brings couples here. Some guys think they'll go around behind their wife's back, and I'll let them sleep with Kim. This will never happen. I will say that several of the wives had to get a little drunk before the exchange. Looking back, I think some of the other similar marriages didn't last long. It takes a special bond to be part of the act of exchange and still save your marriage. Kim and I have them. Will we always be swinging? Probably not. When we have children, the exchange will stop. But until then, we will continue to do this. Hey, Bob, I've seen Sue, and if she's up for it, I know where you can get a little Asian ponytail. After the exchange, you and Sue will soon be divorced. I've seen this before, Bob. You are going through a difficult period right now. I suggest that if you really love Sue, you sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk with her. Reading stories and getting involved in spying on wives, swapping and extramarital sex are 2 different games. Fantasy and reality, I don't see you being able to sit on the sidelines while someone else has your Sue. Jim is at least being honest with me. As far as Sue knows, she won't come within 3 meters of him. She's just not the type to flirt or go out, I'm sure of that. Thank you guys, I understood a lot. I think, as they say, different people, different hobbies. Brad, Mark, I'm sorry things turned out badly for you. I hope there are other women for you. Jim, I wish you all the best. It sounds like you have the average man's fantasy working for you. The only problem is true love. I don't know if you'll ever find her. I don't know how to explain it. This is when I'm glad to come home and see Sue smiling at me. Or the children shout, "Daddy's home!" It's a wonderful feeling. I thanked my friends and went home. Walked in the door, and Sue looked at me. Sue, we need to talk. I love you, I really do. As I've told you many times, I read stories because we don't make love too often. Bob, We don't make love because that's where you fill your head with strange ideas and then satisfy yourself. Do you really believe that after this I want to make love to you? If I stop reading stories, do you think we can be together more often? Well, that is, more than once every few weeks. Bob, I love you, and I understand that I neglected you, and you neglected me. Yes, we will be able to find more time for each other. The last thing I want is to lose you. I want you to understand that I want you, not other men. I saw you reading stories about wife swapping and some other stuff. I was worried that you would like to see me with someone else or that you wanted other women. I'm ready to try and do something with you, but exclusively with you. Around this time, my children came into the room and I heard a familiar cry. Daddy's home! Where have you been, Daddy? Mom said she didn't know and looked sad, my 6-year-old daughter said. Dad needed to think about something. I was wondering if maybe you kids could convince Mom to go look at the Christmas lights tonight. Mommy, can we go, please, Mommy? The children, 6 and 5 years old, were excited. Sue smiled at me. She realized that I was trying to put our lives in order. After all, there were only 2 days left until Christmas. She told the children to get dressed and put on heavy coats. Sue, I love you and want to always be with you. I took her to the computer room, opened adult sites, and deleted them one by one. Of course, I can always go back and add them if I want, but I wanted to show her that I was serious about our efforts. We drove to West Virginia, just an hour and a half away, to check out the beautiful Christmas display set up in the park. It is installed every year, and thousands of people come to see it. The kids were extremely happy, and Sue seemed to enjoy it too. We became a family again. When we got home, it was late, and I helped Sue put the kids to bed. I undressed, thought Sue was too tired to make love, and just kissed her goodnight. Oh no, buddy, you won't get off that easy. I've been waiting for this all evening. She closed our bedroom door and pulled the blanket off me. My wife is very sexy. It didn't take me long to be ready. We had sex, and it was great. Afterwards, we went to bed completely satisfied. Somewhere in the middle of the night, we had sex again. After that night, life changed for us. I missed the stories, but instead I got the real thing with the person I love. We've found that if we communicate more and tell each other how we're feeling, it really helps. We went with friends for New Year's. I was surprised to see Jim and Kim there. I think their lifestyle suits them. I also saw Brad and Amy together. They came and talked to us. Brad said that after we all talked, he went to Amy. I invited her to New Year's, and she agreed. He hopes that maybe they will get back together. He asked us if they could join us. Sue and Amy have always been good friends. Sue later said that Amy was considering giving Brad a second chance, but he would have to work for it. Mistrust is difficult to overcome. Later, Mark came by and said hello to us. He was with a woman we had never seen. It was no surprise that he joined Jim and Kim at their table. Sue knew all my friends and said Jim was someone she could never trust. She said Jim and Kim looked like an odd couple and asked me to never go out with them. There's something about their relationship, Sue said. This is not love, but more like a relationship between a master and a slave. I didn't say anything, but Sue is very good at reading people. We danced and acted like two people in love, and to be honest, we were. That night we made love like never before. I saw that she was really trying to strengthen our marriage. I tried too, and the result was our communication. This is something we should have done much earlier. I know you're wondering, do I ever go back online and read stories? The truth is that Sue and I go online every now and then after we put the kids to bed, pick out stories she thinks are interesting, and read them together. From time to time, we also watch adult films. Sometimes we watch them to the end before going to bed and making love. What I've really learned is that it takes two to argue. Be honest with your partner. Tell him or her if something is bothering you and why. Without communication, the problem cannot be solved. Life is good, and if only people take the time to talk to each other, relationships become much better. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.